Make sure everyone is muted. All right, Don, what are you going to be talking about tonight?
Well, we've been making splits today, so getting ready to sell, and the sale is still on, or the discount is still on for 2-pound packages to the 30th of November. And now's the best time to start stocking up. The bees are a little bit cheaper. Get your stock build up so you can start selling. You're not selling yourself out. And we got several students coming long distances. We had one from, well, he's pretty regular here from Somalia, Daryl. He comes every day. And he's actually buying a barrel of honey to take back to Atlanta, and his son is going to set up a little honey business. So he's getting the whole family involved in it.
That's good.
So anybody got some good questions tonight?
Get those hands up.
Yep.
Nobody.
If anybody is starting to load nukes up, it's hot outside. So load your nuke on a little bit on the light side so that it don't overheat on you. A lot of people don't understand when the temperature raises outside, you don't want to put as much bees in a nuke. I know you want to give a nice nuke to your customer, but if it's got a lot of bees in there that's ready to hatch and it's full, they will overheat really quick. And then you go home with a customer that's unhappy. You got a bunch of dead bees in the bottom of the nuke. What's Elizabeth up to? Behave yourself out there.
Yeah, it's actually not hot today. We were saying that in Facebook. It's ridiculously windy here, so I think my allergies are really flaring up, which I don't like.
How do you like holding a big hammer over all the people out this area now, being the moderator?
Yeah, it's not bad. There's very little, like shenanigans that you have to get involved in. I used to be a moderator of a history group, and that could get real hot real fast.
Well, he's got the thing set up. The people are pretty civilized. We don't get a lot of craziness. They get by once in a while, but we've got Patty there. She's got a hammer too. She'll use it.
We gave her the inflatable hammer, though.
The soft touch.
No, it's so he can pull the plug on it whenever he wants to.
Pop. All right, looks like David and Tracy have a question. Go ahead, guys.
Hey, good evening, Don. How are you?
Okay.
Great. Hey, Don, thinking back to our first couple of years in beekeeping, and we've offered a beginning beekeeping class this year. Mm-hmm. So for years 1 and 2, but what would you say are the top maybe 2 or 3 things that are really essential to new beekeepers to remember in their first year or 2?
Well, I would kind of relate your experiences and kind of go over things that they really don't need. There's places like to sell you kits, then you end up with the things that you're not going to use that are total waste. Main thing I try to get with the new students is basic terminology. Learn what a super is, what a high body is, what a frame is. They're called frames, not racks, and they're not called gums. Gums is old ideas, but there's people around that are promoting the old ways, and it's hard to get stuff, So learn, that stuff and basic techniques of managing a hive. And how often would be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah. We've had a beekeeping class, and we've run it probably half a dozen times, maybe 7 times already. And so we're always looking to kind of just make sure we're hitting the high points and the things that really matter. And so I think you hit some really good ones there. Mite control is another one. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I forget a little bit because I'm so used to treating. Right. But it's kind of like if you don't treat your bees, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have people that are not wanting to use chemical. Then you're gonna have to take the soft approach, and the simple stuff really still works. Paper towels soaked in mineral oil is really good mite treatment. It's a slow kill, but it's pretty much organic. And if people, put a fuss up, I have drank mineral oil right in front of people. And I tell them I bought it at Walmart. It says right on the label, laxative. But if you coat the bees with mineral oil, it's a slow kill for the mites. And then if they don't even want to put that in, just teach them about brood cycle, break the brood cycle, make splits. And right now is your best time to start making splits. I don't know about everybody else, but we are in a big honey flow right now. They're filling frames up. I had a girl coming here from Texas, or not Texas, she was from Florida today. Tall, thin girl. You wouldn't think this little wiry girl could lift, but I got a bad back, and I said, if you want to work hives, I can't lift them up. If you want to go out and lift them now, I said it's 10 frame, and if you're looking at frames, about 15 pounds per frame in a 10 frame hive, those hives out there that you're lifting doubles off because we was making splits, I bet you there was 110 to 130 pounds.
Wow.
Because I put a little smoke on them, and I was using a hive to pry it up, and she got a hold of them. I'm surprised she didn't even grunt. That girl, she said she used to do some weightlifting, but it is a tough job. 10 frame, I would suggest women going with mediums or 8 frame stuff. It's a little bit easier because you're not going to have somebody else there to lift and help you out a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you let your students and stuff that you're teaching beginners, you let them handle the tools, handle the smoker, and show them how to light it and all that?
Yeah, we go through all of that, and we do go through terminology and the kind of the basic pieces there, and then it seems like everything just becomes much more relaxed when they finally get in the bees, and they really start to feel and they see what kind of good bees Don has for genetics and how easy it is to kind of just inspect, and so that gives them a lot of a stress relief, I think, as well. But it's really good to get both the theoretical stuff and then the hands-on a little bit, and then they get much more enthused about it.
Your first thing is to teach them how to light that smoker and then show them how to blow the smoke on their wrist. That's the biggest thing that you have to get across. Daryl is a little bit leery about working hives. So when he come over Tuesday, I let him do the whole thing. And all I did was sit on my bee box there and I watched him. A lot of new students have this fear, I guess. A bee lands on their hand and he was bad about taking his hand and wanting to shake it real quick. I said, no. Well, just move it slow and then, get it off the hive. The quick movements is what attracts them bees. But a lot of people don't understand. You don't need to light a smoker. We used a smoker that just had been put out, a couple of days, the smell of it. I said, give him a little puff of that there, the smell of it. And he was surprised how gentle the bees was and how easy it was to work. So it's a lot of little things people don't think about. I take for granted because it's like walking. You don't have to think about it when you do it for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah, the basics matter. And I think even for us, when we visited you last year, we lit a smoker, wrong before you showed us how to light it correctly. And we've just always kept on with that. And you do take it for granted, but you want to share that kind of stuff with new beekeepers for sure. So great. Thank you, Don.
Okay, get those hands up. Come on. It's like pulling teeth tonight. All right, Elizabeth, go ahead.
So I was curious if there are any external factors that cue you into it's time to put on a super. Like if there's anything in particular that once it's in bloom, you go, oh, here it's coming now. It's time to start putting supers on.
Well, just because you see blooms doesn't mean you can have a honey flow. There's a lot of stuff that'll be blooming, don't really put out much or put out very little. If you got a small amount of hives, yes, you could probably pop the lid, go through them. But one thing I try to show students how to do is just walk through your bee yard, lift the back of the hives up and kind of feel the weight. If you see it gaining weight, then do an inspection. But if you got like an 8 frame hive or even a 10 frame hive and you're covering 3/4 of the frames, then I would go ahead and put a super on it. Don't over super. You put too many supers on, the bees are not going to build as fast. I've got some in the back that are 3 stories, and I was showing a student last week. I said, now take the super off. It's almost capped. Take it off, set it to the side, take the empty super or the new super, put it over the brood chamber, and then put the full one on top. And he looked at me and he said, what do you do that for? He said, you should stack it on top. I said, if you put the one that's already drawn on top of the empty one, as the bees pass through it, they're more likely to draw it out a little faster. It seems to work for me. So a lot of times when you're working with a student, they'll say something or do something, it'll jog your memory. I hope down the road in another 10 years, you look back and said, that old guy said do this, and it seems to work. Keep it simple. Don't make it complicated.
Okay. And over to Jay. Go ahead, Jay.
Good evening. Just kind of a comment, more or less. When you talk about the honey flow, we would have a good honey flow right now, except we've had rain for the last 11 or 12 days every day, just enough to keep the honey from flowing. And then on the training, you're right. Teach them how to light the smoker and then the basics and get their hands in the hives. And they seem to do the best.
One thing I always try to do when I see new students come up is I always like to look at their hive tool, and I show them the scars on my hand. There's a right way to carry that hive tool and there's a wrong way. And I try to get them to dull that hive tool because there's no need for a really sharp hive tool in a beehive.
Yeah.
You nick the frames and you have little slivers under your fingernails. No, it's just, but there's a lot of people that don't even know how to carry a hive tool in their back pocket. So it seems silly to bring stuff like that up, but you have to educate people before they get hurt. I got scars on my hands to show people what happened when you don't have someone to teach you. The things that I learned the hard way. So that's why I pass on as much as I can.
I agree. Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Don, I have a question for you. I did a split, a 6-way split. I had a ton of queen cells, and so I split it 6 ways, and about 5 of the queens did not. It looks like they emerged and probably flew out, but they never came back. Is that common, or do we think birds are grabbing them? Or
If you got a hummingbird feeder out, people that have hummingbird feeders are losing more bees, I think. People don't understand hummingbirds will pick out bees. And then the dragonflies, it's a little early for dragonflies, but another thing you might want to do when you put cells in is to close the hive up and leave it closed for a day or two and let the queen mature a little bit more.
okay, she got a better chance then if she's a
Well,
little bit older.
a weak queen is not going to fly as good as one that's been a little older. So
Okay.
it seems to work better. When you get a lot of dragonflies, you have to do that more.
Okay. All right, I'll have to try that. All right. Come on.
Jeff he's pondering what to ask tonight, I can tell.
You got something for us, Jeff?
No, it's actually pretty quiet up here. I got my AC on, got up in the 70s here. I got to get it back down about 60. No, everything's pretty straightforward. The bees, I'm waiting to see if they're going to, I'm trying to force one of those hives here to produce some queen cells. So we'll see. Another week or so might see some. But other than that, it's been relatively quiet. The only thing active out there is black flies and mosquitoes.
Oh. Well, if you get too cold there, come down to Georgia. We're going to have the next 2 days, 100-day weather.
No, you can keep that.
I was working out today and it wasn't too bad. It was probably running right about 88, 89 degrees.
Now we got a lot of the plum and apples and the pear trees are actually blooming now. So a lot of activity around the trees for the bees. So, and so we're we're probably at spring wise, we're like 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks behind you in Georgia.
Well, you might want to try putting pollen patties on, cut them small and see if that'll help get your stimulation going.
I've done that before. No, they as soon as they're bringing in tons of pollen, they got the dandelions and all that stuff. Now I could tell when there's a pollen availability, they quickly move from the granular or the patties to bringing in the real stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, they've been loading up. I mean, I'm like a dandelion nursery here in my area, so they got when I mow, I'm constantly waiting for them to leave the dandelion. But other than that, no immediate questions at this point.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks, so.
All right, over to Patricia. Go ahead, Pat.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Well, we were talking about for new beekeeper classes and things like that. And Don, one of the biggest things that we run up against is the misinformation that is out there about queens and where queen cells are located and all the bad information. I was wondering if you could talk about just general queen rearing for a beginner.
Well,
Things that you heard that were the wrong information and that kind of thing.
well, there's always a big debate about placement of the queen cell on the frame. You probably listen to a lot of stuff. I worry about boring people because I repeat myself a lot. And I refer to queens, the cells, as the chicken in the farmyard. If the chicken is laying the egg and has a rooster there and lays it on the ground and sits on it and it's fertilized, it's going to hatch. If the chicken goes to the second floor and lays that egg, it's still going to hatch. Same thing if it has an egg and it goes to the third floor. So my opinion, and it's just what I have learned, no matter where on that frame that queen cell is, as long as that hasn't been chilled, there's bees on it that will show you that it's active, it will hatch. And if it's not overly developed, extremely long, and just, I try to tell people, use your little pinky, the first joint. That should be a normal queen cell. If it looks like that, you're good to go. I've seen people preach at bee clubs. You got all these queen cells on the bottom bar of the thing. Scrape them all off, and I put my hands over my ears. I don't want to hear it. It's like throwing $1,000 on the ground. But there's a lot of false information that's out on queen cells. There's a lot of good information as far as books and stuff, but there's a lot of misinformation, and it's just passed down the road by each beekeeper. Does that kind of give you an idea or answer your question?
Yeah, it does, because I run up against the same thing. People, and one thing that I think it helps if we tell people is the things that they teach backyard beekeepers, they teach it so that the general public can follow the basic rule. It's not accurate because it's been repeated and diluted. And a lot of times the information that you're told is, they think it's accurate, but they're not accurate. And so I think that that's one of the things that we can do in our new beekeeper classes, is to make sure that we're teaching them accurate information, especially with they don't kick out the first cold day. If they did, there wouldn't be any drones come spring. So there's a lot of those kinds of basic myths, I guess is a good thing to call it, that I think it's good for us to try and correct.
Right. You have to work with the people and try to get them over because of the misinformation. And then let them experience it, work the hive with you, show them. And people think they got to be dressed to the T working bees. Right now, if you're in a warm area, a good headgear is plenty. I worked in a t-shirt today, and these are double deep shaken hives. And the people that don't understand, a shaken hive is a top producing hive. We can shake like 3 packages, 4 packages a week out of one hive. So they are packing. We got 7 to 8 frames of sealed brood just about all the time. So basically 1 frame of bees is a package. So you got that hatching out on a regular basis. So if you wear a full suit, especially in Georgia with a high humidity, you're going to have a problem. You're going to get a heat stroke. So um, protect the face with a little net or just a thing with the straps on it. That's what I use. I work a t-shirt, you know, bees are going to land on your hand. They're going to land on your arm. They're not going to sting like, you know, people think they are. You got to get used to bees walking on your skin. It just takes a little while, but it happens. Be comfortable and take a lot of breaks when you're working and splitting right now. And this is the best time to split right now. And then going back to those new questions, I try to ask people that's coming to buy bees net, what is their goal? I mean, are you trying to make hive for honey for your own production? You want to make honey for selling? Do you want to pollinate? Do you want to sell bees or you want to sell queens? So that way you can guide them down the right way. Each thing takes a little bit different way to, you know, progress along.
Okay, and over to Elizabeth. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yeah, so back to what you were just saying about when there's a bunch of queen cells on a frame. I've also sometimes heard that advice where they're just like, cut every single queen cell off. And I don't think that's good advice. If they're hell bent on swarming, they're going to. But so I specifically was curious, if you have one of those frames where there's just a ton of queen cells, do you ever cull it down to just a few, or do you completely leave it to them to hash it out?
Do you want my advice or you want to hear what most people want to hear?
Well, either or. I wanted to see how you'd answer that.
All right, let's say you have a frame, and what has it got, 20 cells on it? All right, let's take 20 cells. That's like asking me, I have a pocket full of 20s. Am I going to throw the ones away that are dirty, crinkled up, just keep the nice ones? If you got a box, save the queen. That's I sell bees, I sell queens. So I'm not going to throw $1 on the ground when I can make $1 on it. That's my philosophy of it, you know. The only thing you have to watch is when you pull the frame out is not to bump the cell. Look at the cell. It takes just a second or two, look it over. If there is bees walking on the cell, it's a good cell. And if you can cut it off without damaging it, singular, then get your little phone or a little flashlight and candle it. Look through it. You can see the queen in there moving. I mean, anybody with half of a brain is not going to take money out of their wallet and throw it on the ground, but that's what they're asking you to do because they want you to cut all them off. And if you made a mistake and cut everything, then you have no queen, then they're selling you a queen. See? So you've got to reason things out, what sounds reasonable, what isn't.
That answer your question, Elizabeth? Okay. Over to Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, my question is a little different. I've got a lot of ticks in my yard. And what is safe to use to, I guess you'd say, kill them out?
Kill them out? I don't think you're going to find anything. If you spray open spraying, fogging through the trees and stuff, you're going to damage your bees. If you're talking about your personal body, I've had a lot of old beekeepers say, get those fleet collars, put one around each ankle and one on your wrist, and it seems to help. People that do organic like to take essence of oil, eucalyptus, and just rub a little bit on their hands and on their ankles a little bit, and it's a repellent. I actually use eucalyptus as a mite treatment because I had talked to, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, several people coming from the almonds out there where they had almonds and eucalyptus trees, and they was talking about not having no mites at all. And I said, well, what are you treating with? They said, nothing. And what's happening, I guess, is leaves and stuff from the eucalyptus falls on the ground, and there's so much of that on the ground that the mites just don't reproduce.
Well, I know every time I go out in my beehives, I've got them out, in sage grass and stuff. And I walk through it, and every time I come back, I've got 2 or 3 ticks crawling on me.
The only thing I think you could do, like in our bee yard, is take a weed whacker and keep the stuff low. If you got trees that are close to your beehive, take a pruning thing and kind of prune them back. I think you get more ticks by rubbing up against branches or the high grass.
Well, the grass mine's in's probably 5, 6 inches tall. And every time I walk out there, I'm coming out with ticks crawling up my leg.
You might try some geese if you got a big enough place. Let geese run. They seem to pick up a lot of stuff. Guinea hens do that too.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you could spray. I mean, there's people that spray anything from motor oil to bug killer out there.
Well, I was wondering, I didn't know if it would work or not. At Walmart, they sell a granule product that's kills ticks and stuff. It's sort of granule, sort of like fertilizer.
Mhm.
That would probably be bad for the bees too, though, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I try not to use any of that stuff. I'm a little reluctant to use like Roundup in our big yards. What we usually do is just get a bunch of salt and vinegar and mix it up good and just spray around the thing, and it seems to kill out a lot.
Yeah.
But I think if you just mow it down a little bit, keep your brush cut back, probably going to save you a little bit on that.
Okay. Well, I didn't know. That's my biggest question I had for right now, because
A lot of it could be the person itself. I'm not saying that some people stink or nothing. It just, I know I'm out in the bee yard. My son will be there, and my son-in-law, and sometimes another student, and they'll get 1 or 2. My son-in-law's had 4 or 5, and I walk through the same areas, and very seldom do I get a tick. I mean, usually July and August, I might pick 1 or 2 up, but I don't know. Maybe it's the person's body. I don't know.
well, with me, they like me. I can walk near a tick and he's gonna come to me.
Yeah, well,
So,
I got a brother that mosquitoes won't even bite. He sits out there, they'll eat me up. They won't even touch him, but I think it's everybody's body's different.
yeah. Okay, that's about all the question I got, because all my bees and stuff's doing good. I've been selling good,
Good.
and everything's doing
The
pretty
flea
good.
collars. Try those flea collars. There's people that swear by them. Put one around each ankle, one on each wrist, and see if that don't help. But wash your wrist and wash your ankles and stuff after you come out of the bee yard.
Yeah. I'm ready to try something, because like I said, every day I go out there, I come back, I find a tick crawling on me.
Mm,
And sometimes they done found meat and done bit.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I've got right now.
Okay. Pat, did you have something to add to that?
Well, Don hit on it, but I know 2 years ago we were invaded by ticks. It was a real wet spring. And I saw online that if you mow your grass really, really short, the ticks run away because the sunlight gets down to the soil, and it completely got rid of our tick problem. I got poodles that come in the house and stay in here with us all the time. And so if there's ticks, it's all over them, and then it's all over us. And mowing the grass really short, in about 2 weeks, they were gone. And then I let the grass grow back with no problem. So,
And I believe Pat's also got the guinea hens.
yes, I do.
They love the ticks.
I mentioned that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Guineas make a terrible racket, though. I mean, they holler all day long. And if they can see me in the window, they holler even louder because they want me to come out and talk to them. And so, but that's the only thing bad about guineas is they make a lot of noise, but they do keep ticks up. But the biggest difference was mowing the grass short. That really did clear up. And we mowed it short for about 2 weeks. And you got to mow it really short so that the sun can get all the way down to the ground, to the roots of the ground and the grass roots. And we got rid of the ticks. So.
All right, thank you. All right, we're at a standstill again. No questions. Brett, how are you doing? How's your bees and bee sales going?
Everything's going all right. I do have a question though. I had a couple queen cells that they made, never hatched. And when I pulled them off, they were just solid wax. I never saw that before, but they looked like a beautiful queen cell, but it was just all the way through wax.
Are you sure it was wax and it wasn't like a real thick royal jelly?
Maybe. I didn't even think of that.
I have seen that occasionally. It looks like real thick cottage cheese in a cabinet.
Maybe it was dried up cottage cheese.
Well, what you can do is pull the cap off of it, and look.
Yeah, I opened it.
Yeah. Well, if it's like dried up, maybe it was at the side there, and maybe it was hot weather or it got chilled.
Yeah, it might have got chilled because we had a couple good nights of cold weather. But sales are going good. I got to learn to say no again because we're starting to get short.
Make another Georgia. Now's the time to buy them. They're discounted down till the 30th.
Okay, I might have to come down and get some. And we just had she was a honey broker that came to our house. And she works for a company that makes organic makeup and lipsticks and stuff that they put honey in, or facial stuff, whatever. But she wanted like 200 gallons a week. I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But there's people out there, if you want to sell your honey, you can sell a lot of it. Yeah, it was funny that she just showed up right to the house asking, how many gallons can you get a week?
Well, I would question her a little bit because sometimes there's some scams going on with that honey out there. If you do sell honey, never sell it on a commodity basis. You get paid later. You go to the store, they want their money. When you get your product, same thing with the honey. Get your money when you get the product. None of that 20 or 30 days billion stuff. That don't work.
No, never.
And don't sell honey cheap. We pulled off, Stephen pulled off about 2 or 2.5 barrels today. I got a bunch to pull, and he asked me what I was going to pull. And I said, no, I'm not really. I'm going to use mine to make splits. But if I sell a bucket of honey, I'm going to sell it for $500. And people can laugh all day and sell theirs for $200 or $300 all day. There's nobody putting a gun to their head and selling that cheap. But $100 a gallon, that's $25 a quart. And if you sell it in bulk like that, they can taste it. I never have a problem selling honey at $500 a bucket. It's good honey, clean. So don't undersell your product. People they're worried about the guy down the street selling it $2 cheaper to them, so they want to match him, and then the guy drops his price some more. So if you got a good, natural, good product, then don't cut prices. Those with a bee supply, they're not cutting prices because you're not making no money on your honey.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right now we have a really good honey flow going on, and I'll put 3 frames of pretty much empty frames with a queen cell and a bunch of bees, and that handful of bees is filling up, backfilling all that.
Yeah.
So when the queen finally goes out, it's basically full of nectar.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you can do to slow that down?
That's like asking people, don't make as much money.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I didn't think there was going to be anything. They're just backfilling like crazy.
Well, there's people that right now, because everybody's selling honey, that they're cut prices at. If you sit on your honey, and then in August and September, a lot of people have got ants in their pants and sold that honey. Now, they don't have honey, and you can get a better price for your honey. And honey won't spoil. You can get more for it if you hang on to it in November or December.
And it seems like they're not drawing out the comb, new foundation as much as they're backfilling.
Well, it sounded, when you were saying 3 frames at a time, I would do like one frame, add a new frame, a starter strip, or a full frame of foundation, one at a
Yep.
time. When they get it about 3/4 drawn out, then add an extra frame. If you put too much, it kind of overwhelms them.
Okay.
And are you putting it between two combs that's already drawn, or are you trying to put 2 in a row or 3 in a row? New
I was
foundation?
putting two that were drawn out, empty, and one foundation.
I think it only works better if you put one at a time in there between frames that's drawn out, especially on a honey flow. They just draw it out super fast and a lot better cells than if you put too much at one time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And no more hands. Come
We ain't
on,
heard
get those
from
hands
Roger
up.
in a long time. Roger got something to tell us. What's going on with you, Roger?
Oh, I don't know. Watching it rain right now.
Oh,
It's been a pretty rainy week. Well, last couple of weeks, and the next week's going to be rainy too.
mhm.
I made some splits, I don't know, a week or so ago. And it's been so rainy and crazy, I haven't really looked at them, see how they're doing. I thought I'd get into them next week, see what's going on there. So, I don't know. It's just been kind of crazy around here. I want to ask you, how much pollen should they be in a hive? Um, it's been crazy here. We've had cold weather, freezing. I
Well,
don't see any pollen in my hives. I
that's
think they're using everything they're bringing in.
you basically answered your question there. If it's raining, they're not going to bring pollen in sometimes for 2 to 3 days. You know, if you have an extended period there. So that's if you're trying to build brood up, you might add a small pack, small little block of pollen substitute or something to it, or mix it up and cut it. If you buy the pre-made patties, cut them about 8 ways.
Okay.
As far as pollen in a hive, I mean, I've got some hives that I went through today that's got 2 or 3 frames that's got a third of it pollen in. A lot of assorted colors.
Yeah, I hear you guys talk about that, but here, I don't know. Apparently, we haven't got the pollen here anymore that really we need, I think. And I'm afraid that's kind of causing some problems because, of course, I live in a pretty much agriculture area. So a lot of stuff that used to have pollen isn't there anymore. So I don't know. I don't see the pollen in my hives. I think I should have.
I
And I
would go
don't
ahead
think,
and add some pollen substitute, or you can buy the patty.
well, I have added some at times,
To help
especially when I'm making splits or something,
Yeah.
I'll add a piece. But of course, the hive beetles, I try to keep them out. They
Well,
want
that's
in.
one reason you want to cut your patties smaller so that you don't put too much that because the beetles multiply more when you got that pollen patties in them.
Yeah,
So keep that at a minimum.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's crazy around here anymore. I mean, my granddad used to have bees years ago, but they didn't have the problems we've got now. And of course, I just think in the fall, everybody talks about the goldenrod. I don't get much goldenrod. I mean, they come around, but I don't see them bringing that much stuff in
How
off of
big is
it.
your yard?
How big?
Yeah.
Right now, it's just 13. I've just got 13 hives.
No, how big of a yard do you have? Acreage.
Oh well, I've got about 120 acres here.
I think
That's
you're having that problem. What I would do is go buy that mixed flower assortment and plant that. I would plant 3 or 4 good acres of clover, and clover's going to put out some pollen. That's good feed too.
Well, right, we've got a lot of white clover here,
Are
and
you
this
working?
last year was a good year for it. But it's just now beginning to bloom. It just started blooming this last week, but it's rained about every day. But I don't know. It's a lot of the other pollen that lasts all year, you know, last year, the white pollen was, or white clover was there about all year,
Yeah.
but that don't normally happen.
What is the agricultural in your area? What are they raising?
Corn and soybeans.
Corn and soy. Well, you're going to get a little pollen from soybeans, but more you'll pick up more pesticide than anything else.
Yeah, that's, and of course I've got farm ground here too, so part of mine is, I'm part of the problem too. So, it's kind of, I don't think my bees are building up in the fall enough to quite make it through the winter. Of course,
What do you treat with?
I'm treating with oxalic acid.
How many times you treat with them in the fall?
At least 6. I try to run every week for 6 treatments in the fall, at least. And if I can get another one in before cold weather, I'll do it.
About every 2 or 3 weeks, starting like in October, all the way up into January or whenever the bees stop flying. Usually we'll do it to about 55 degrees. Bees fly fairly well at that, but they'll start flying at 45, 48, but I don't like to do oxalic acid then.
See, that's the trouble. It gets colder here because I'm in North Missouri, and it usually it's about too cold that time of year. Once in a while, you might catch a day. What's that?
Have you talked to Dennis Crutchfield? He's in Missouri.
Yeah,
How far is he from you?
I think he's a couple hours from me off to the north or east, southeast of me.
You might ask him what he's doing there because he's probably going to be in the same boat.
Well, I'm sure he is because we've had a pretty cold spring, and like I say, every time something gets to blooming, it'll frost. I mean, I don't think we'll have a fruit here this year because I think it all frosted. And when the dandelions come out, they didn't last. I mean, I didn't see much pollen coming in off the dandelions like normal because I think part of it was cold weather and the rain.
Yeah.
So I just don't think I'm seeing quite as much pollen in the hives as I should be. I think they need more than they're getting.
We've had some strange weather, that's for sure.
We have. So that's about all I've got, Don. So.
Okay. And Pat, you have something to add?
Well, our weatherman is really good about telling the length of daylight and all that kind of stuff for local beekeepers and all. And he was saying a week or so ago that in the last 20 years, every year, the amount of pollen produced and the pollen producing flowers has decreased every year for the last 20 years. And one thing that hit us really hard 2 years ago was we had a real cool, wet spring. And we had this thing here. Everybody has weeds and aggravating things in their particular area, but we have something called Carolina jasmine. It's a yellow vine, blooming yellow that grows all up in the treetops in the woods. And it causes a paralysis in the bees, as does buttercups. And when there's less pollen, good pollen available, the bees will seek out that pollen that causes problems for them like that. And so it causes you to lose bees and you can't figure out why. And a lot of times it's those things combined together for a bad year all the way around. Cool, wet spring, bad pollen sources. Roger may be onto something with the lack of pollen. It's not only the lack of pollen, it's the lack of good pollen that the bees can eat safely and harvest heavily. And I know with us, the guy that rents our land plants whatever he wants to. I don't have any control over that. And a couple of years ago, he planted corn, and I had a major bee die out. And normally I don't because I close them up. And I closed them up, and they treated, but they harvest pollen heavily off of the corn. They don't really get any nectar, but they get pollen. And whatever they treated the corn with was on the pollen. They carried it back to the hives, and it killed quite a few of my hives. So a lot of that stuff kind of snowballs together and you get hit by everything in all directions. But I think you're onto something with your pollen sources, Roger.
Okay. Don, anything more to add on that?
Well, the only thing you can do with that is, pollen substitute. I mean, and then Uh, check your hive, look at your foundation. If it's getting dark, try changing out a few more combs every year. That helps. Every little bit that you can do helps. But I'm rotating a lot of comb out all the time, a lot more than what the average person would do. But if it's cocoa colored, it's about time to start thinking about changing it. If it's coffee black, it's way overdue. People are reluctant to throw old comb away and they'll melt it down, save the wax. Because, if you got a hive that's got a lot of grown comb in it, all they're going to do with it is they're going to store honey in it. That's about it. Or they're going to make drones, which if you're having a problem ready, that's just going to add to it because the drones is going to consume a lot of your honey. You don't need the drones unless you're going to raise a lot of queens.
Okay, I think David and Tracy have something to add on the pollen. Go ahead, guys. You're muted. Hold on.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. One of the things you read and we hear from other commercial guys that send their bees out to California, when they're out there, they only get one source of pollen, and that's almond pollen, for example, and it doesn't make the diversity of diet for the bees that they should have with pollen, and they tend to starve, even though pollen with almonds is plentiful. And so that makes them weak, and when they come back, they get sick. And of course, it doesn't help in the almond tree business where they're treating systemically for bugs, and it gets in the blooms, and it makes the bees weak again. But it's really a good topic to bring up from Roger, because it's pollen is such an important part. We think about nectar and nectar sources for honey. That's true. But bees need pollen for health. That's their protein.
Yeah. That's why, I would suggest there's several seed companies that have a mix of wildflowers, and you can throw that stuff out and just barely hit the ground and this stuff will grow. There's even some companies that have a weed mixture. Weeds have a lot of good stuff for bees, and that people don't like it because it's not a golf course looking, but I'm feeding bees. I'm not worried about country club look.
Okay, no other questions right now. Tick, tick, tick.
Well, we do these chats, every 2 weeks. I'm here to help you. I don't know what you need unless you ask. So a lot of times, maybe sit down and think about what would you like to hear being discussed? What problems do you have in your bee yard? Is it building boxes, building nukes, making splits, making queens, selling honey, getting into the selling of bees, getting along with your neighbors, whatever it is, think about it so we have something, so we can chat about. You certainly don't want to sit here and watch me for 30 minutes and not talk to me.
Yeah. Don, you had, I think you given some good tips on this time of year. Needles are starting to take off with population, and where they're at is, I don't know if that's even part of the equation, but how to treat them. Do you still use kind of a Crisco and diatomaceous earth paint? Okay.
There's a lot of little things, and I've had people bring up, well, you talk about this treatment, you talk about doing that one. If it was so good, then why are you talking about another? Well, a pair of shoes is not the same size for everybody. So there's some people that don't want to do a harsh treatment. So you have to tailor what you're doing to the person that doesn't want to put much chemical in the hive. You're talking to people that want to make a living, don't want to lose bees. So then you have to use stronger measures. We run a commercial operation. That is a given here. When we start running 3 to 4% losses, we got to sit back and see what in the heck's going on. We can't afford that. But when I hear people calmly say, well, we lose 30%, that's nothing. Our bee club is average 50%. So it's just normal. It's not normal. You're doing something wrong. You need to fix the problem. And people say, we're going to put a piece of newspaper, going to combine hives. That's not fixing your problem. Find out why the hives is weak. Get in there and investigate. if you can't see the mites, get a friend to come over, get a magnifying glass. Today's phones are great. Take a picture of the frame and take it on your computer, blow it up. You'd be surprised the things that's on that frame you've never seen. Or learn the things. Like if you go deer hunting, you don't have to see deers. You go out in the woods, you see deer tracks, you see the poop, you got deer. So, I mean, look at the frame, look for the problems, the causes, you know. We got to be our own person to kind of keep an eye on what we're doing so we don't, you know, we can't afford to keep losing bees at the rate we're doing now. We're losing crazy amount of bees. And I tell students, I tell people on checks, you buy bees from me, you should never have to buy bees again unless you want to change the genetics. Then you buy some new stock to change that genetics. I give you all that information, how to make all the queens, how to sell them. I mean, it works. It's simple. Nothing complicated about it.
Okay, Jay looks like he's got a question. Go ahead, Jay.
On my splits that I've done this year, of course, I did splits about 2 weeks ago again, and then it's rained about every day since then. But they don't seem to be growing much right now. Is that going to come back as far as not getting enough pollen in with them, or because of all the rain we've had?
Well, you're going to have pollen if you want to raise brood. That's a given there. So it's hard to predict what the weather's going to do. I mean, you know, you have to work with Mother Nature, or you can supplement it. Try the pollen substitute on small pieces. You know, don't go overboard, especially on splits and nukes. If you keep your hive fairly strong, then you can use larger amounts of pollen.
Yeah.
We don't normally use pollen this type of the year ourselves. Our pollen usually stops by March 1st, unless we've had rain. And this year, we started grafting first part of February, you know. So, you know, each person's individual and their location's individual.
One of the problems I've got, I've tried to follow Mr. Don, and then when I split them pretty thin.
Yeah. Well, it works if everything is working with you, weather, and you got the broad comb, a lot of things work with you. The things that I teach are simple, they work. They're
Yeah.
not complicated.
I think the rain just catching me this year more than normal.
Well, if
I've
you
got to
got a
figure out how
rainy
to
year
work around
this year, maybe next year it's going to be hot and dry. You never know.
Yeah.
Just
I might come back and put
Yep,
little
keep
pieces of
going.
patty in each one of them. If I can get a little pollen in there, maybe that'll help them go.
Yeah. Now you can use Mega Bee. You know, I'm not real big. I like to promote people's things, but Mega Bee was basically designed to put bees on an island where there's nothing growing and bees can thrive. Because that product has all your amino acids. It's got everything bees need to survive and grow. It's expensive, but you can mix small amounts of that up, put it in the hive, see if that'll boost them up and help them.
All right. I might try that.
Yeah, it's
That and pollen.
a product, but it works fine. I've used it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And let's see, anybody else have any more questions? We're almost at 9 o'clock. Get them in now.
They'll all talk when we leave.
Yeah. Jeff has something. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Don, when you talked about that mega feed, is that a aromatic type feed?
No, Mega Bee is a powder. It's like
Okay.
pollen. It's got a blend of all your amino acids. It's something the USDA made up years ago, and it's a product that's been on. I think comparing it to other people's pollen substitute, it beats it 100 to 1, I believe. I bought other people's product because it was a lot cheaper, and the bees just ignore it.
Yeah, I'm staying away from anything that's aromatic. I noticed that a lot of those liquid ones in particular, they induce robin.
Yeah. You got to be careful with the ones like that.
Yeah. I've noticed that robin with by other hives and even hornets.
Yeah.
So I just, if I just do sugar water, I just, it's plain sugar water, and that's it.
Are you feeding inside or are you using buckets or you community feeding?
No, right now inside, I
Yeah.
may, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's not like I got a lot, dozens of hives, but we'll see. It depends upon how often I have to replenish them. If it becomes a, steady meal train, then I'll work on something outside.
What we used to use sugar, and we went to the corn syrup with so much faster, and they build up so much faster. It's cheaper in the long run.
Right.
One thing too is once you start getting some numbers up, mixing the sugar is a time-consuming thing.
Right. Yeah.
To feed them. Where that corn syrup, if they're not taking it, it won't spoil. It don't ferment.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So last up, it looks like Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, hi. Leon has a question for Don. We bought some high fructose corn syrup last year. Well, they sold it as high fructose corn syrup. Have you ever had it crystallize?
There's a blend that's 43. We get 55. It's a little thicker. The 43 is they call it fructose, and it's not really a corn syrup. They run refined sugar through a heat system, and it makes it a liquid, and it does crystallize. It usually takes about 3 to 6 months.
That's probably what we got then, because it was right at about the 5-month marker that we started having the crystallization. And I'm like, high fructose corn syrup doesn't crystallize. Well, this did. I got a 55-gallon drum of it that about quarter of a way down, and we hit
They
crystals.
say it was 55 corn syrup.
Someone else picked it up for us, and they said it was what it was sold to them as. They believed it too. So I mean, they weren't doing anything. It was just, that's what we thought.
You're not too far from Charlotte, North Carolina, over there, Domino. You can buy either 43 or 55 over there.
Charlotte's about 10 hours from us. 6 hours. Leon says 6 hours. Okay. We'll have to look in that. You said Domino's? Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to look into that. Yeah, because you're a little too far. I'd come more often, but you're a little bit further out than.
But if you get to 55, it's not going to spoil. In fact, Greg has even mentioned on chats that when he went to the 55, and they don't take it during the winter. Whenever the weather warms up, it's still good. It won't spoil.
Yeah. I didn't know they had a 43. That's good info. Yeah. I'll have to check into that for sure.
A 55-gallon drum, I'm not sure what they sell. But we used to buy totes over there, and you could buy a tote over there for $500. That's 300 gallons.
That's not bad. Yeah.
So you could, get 2 or 3 people to go in with you. 10
Mhm.
hours, not that bad. You can haul a tote on the back of a standard pickup.
Okay.
I pull a tandem trailer over, and I used to get 2 totes on it.
All right. That's good info.
You
Yeah.
can get, we were selling $60 for a 5-gallon on the 55. People would come and want a 5-gallon bucket. We just open the valve up and give them 5 gallons.
Yeah, that's not bad. You can get your money back and then some. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. And if there's no more questions, then that'll be it for tonight. So thank you, everyone. We will see you in 2 weeks, and stick around for the after chat if you want. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks, Don.
Everybody for showing up. We'll see you in 2 weeks.